Hi, everybody. My name is Brent Kotchuk. I'm one of the co-chairs of AMPIA. Pleased to be here as a presenter for today's session, TELUS, Ask Us Anything. And it's so nice to have everybody here as we head into a long weekend. But in production, as we know, weekends aren't always a thing. So with that as a bit of a segue, I want to alert you to something on October 21st, the AMPIA Producer Power Up event, which is being held at NATE on October 21st for Alberta producers, and it's co-sponsored by ESIO, AMF, Telefilm, and NATE. And keynote by Mark Ham, our Alberta Film Commissioner. Funding sessions with Telefilm, TELUS, ESIO, Alberta Media Fund, and the Alberta Film and Television Tax Credit Fund. And afternoon panels include Climate Action Through Film, The Perfect Pitch with Alberta Producers, AI in the Spotlight, and Service Production 101. So in addition to this valuable session today, we were proud to offer this up to our members as well later in October. But again, speaking of weekends, we had our Rosie Awards last weekend, and all of the nominees and winners, so many times it came up that these were projects that were part of TELUS. And TELUS has been such a great resource and partner for so many Alberta producers for so long, and such good work is coming from that it's nice to present them today so that we can ask them how to keep that going and how to do good work for them, and ask them anything today. So with that in mind, Leanne Kamazin is a manager and managing production executive of TELUS Originals. She joined the program over 3 years ago and has since stewarded the team through green lighting and supporting the production of well over 50 docs across BC. And while she spends more time on the finance and operational side of the program than creative, Leah does love being inspired by the passion and wild talent of local storytellers. So thank you for talking to our Alberta local storytellers today, Leah.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Brent. I really appreciate that introduction, and for AMPIA hosting us today. There's so much effort going on behind the scenes to make this event happen. So really big thanks to Bonnie and the entire board, as well as Matt, who's hosting us and helping us out with the event today. I was meant to join you all today from the traditional and treaty lands of the Tla'amin Nation, currently known as Powell River here in British Columbia. But the weather had other plans, so myself and others on my team are joining you from the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, where we have the opportunity to live with our families. We acknowledge that TELUS's work spans many Indigenous territories and treaty areas. And for those participating in this session live and also watching the recording later, I want to acknowledge the Indigenous territories and lands on which you live and work. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Anyone kind of joining this session would know it's being live streamed. It's also being recorded and will be made available to folks who couldn't attend. If for whatever reason you're not comfortable asking your question live in the comment section, there'll be a slide at the end that will share with you some information where you can send us that in private. This is our very first Ask Us Anything that is live in this format, so we're so excited about it. Please note that this session in particular is exclusive to TELUS Originals. If you have any other questions about StoryHive or TELUS Fund or TELUS Independent, please direct those questions to the appropriate contacts listed on their website. You can also email us if you're not sure where to find those, and we'll direct you as well. Great. So I'd love to welcome Christina, Ken, Selena, and Kelly to the stage, as we can call it here, I suppose, live streaming. This is the fabulous team that I have the absolute honor, privilege, pleasure of working with, collaborating with all the time on the team. Christina brings nearly 30 years of film and television experience, including roles such as director, producer, board member, and industry policy advisor, and former Albertan. You used to live in Calgary, I believe. Is that right, Christina?
Yes. I did a stint in Calgary. Yes. Hello, everybody. Love you all.
We also have Ken Choi on our team, also a production executive for TELUS Originals. Ken is also on the board chair of the Doxa Film Festival, a board member of the Cinematheque here in Vancouver, and a programmer for VIF Labs and Live. Also spent a few years in Alberta.
First 11
years in Alberta. Excellent. We also have Selena. Selena Cremon joined our team a few months ago as a production executive as well. Selena has worked in the documentary industry for over a decade, most notably through her role as director of programming at DOXA, the Documentary Film Festival, a programmer at Hot Docs, and most recently as a program analyst on the film and TV funding team at Creative BC. Thanks very much for joining us.
Hi, everyone.
Joining us from Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis homelands and Métis Nation of Alberta Region 4 is Kelly Fox. Kelly is the Senior Marketing Manager for TELUS Originals with close to 20 years at the National Film Board, first as a production supervisor and then as a marketing manager. Kelly has worked with crews, creators, festival educators, communities, and industry groups from across the country and is now pleased to be working with some of the most talented documentarians in her home province of Alberta and, of course, the BC ones too.
Thanks, Leah. Hi, everyone.
Also, a big thanks to someone behind the scenes right now is Cameron Zinger and Jesse Long, who have both helped in supporting this event. Cameron is the Director of Local Content, overseeing both the Story Hive and TELUS Originals programs, and Jesse is supporting local content as a whole over the next few months as a marketing specialist. So thank you to you both for joining us. All right, I'm going to share just, I promise our remarks are going to be very limited so that we can get to the Q&A section as quickly as possible. But I did want to share just a couple things about TELUS Originals just right off the bat before we get going. So there's just a brief slide here. TELUS Originals has been around since 2014. Since then, we've invested well over $21 million into local stories and filmmakers across BC and Alberta, where TELUS sells its cable. For those of you who aren't yet aware, the micro description of why we're here and why we do it is that as a telecommunications company in Canada, providing cable in BC and Alberta, we're required to reinvest a percentage of that revenue back into local storytelling, and we do that with great honor and privilege and passion. And so that's where this funding is coming from. So big shout out to all the Optic TV customers who are on the call. That $21 million is surging every year. And with that, we've produced, we haven't produced, but we've supported the production of well over 250 documentaries and docuseries episodes. We, on the TELUS Original side of things, are working exclusively with experienced, more so mid to late career documentary producers. We work on, we support features, mid and short length documentaries, as well as limited series, docuseries. I was going to do a little giveaway, but I think that might be too difficult given the technology here. But you can see on the left-hand side here, a lot of these films, in fact, are produced, directed by Alberta-based filmmakers and based in Alberta, which we're always really excited to promote. On the TELUS Original side, in contrast to our Story Hive kind of sibling program, the production executives who I introduce you to take a creative, collaborative approach with producers. They provide feedback during a project in development, although we don't and aren't able to provide development funding. They can provide feedback in that stage, support all throughout production in terms of troubleshooting anything or business affairs support, and then provide creative notes at the usual milestones that you might be familiar with from working with a broadcaster during post-production. Representation is very much important to us and has been since the onset of this program. In our scorecard that we report on a quarterly basis, we have commitments to representation as well as in our contracts. And before I hand it over to Ken, I wonder, Matt, is it possible to play the sizzle reel that we had queued up? If not, that is completely...
This is the time for a new beginning.
Now is the time.
We are so powerful when we are together.
Here they come in hot pursuit.
There is a world that most people don't even really know exists.
Dancing is my skateboarding.
crazy.
I feel like there's definitely more eyes on me because I'm a girl.
I use my art as medicine.
I am a drag queen, the Prairie Queen. Here I am.
This is a home for residents, for community.
Amazing. Thanks so much for playing that. I really appreciate that. Hopefully that gives you a sense, a flavor of the types of projects we're really excited about supporting. Those were films from the last broadcast year. Great. Now over to Ken.
Great. Thanks, Leah. Hello, everybody. We're really excited to have you all here today to tell you a little bit more about TELUS Originals and get you inspired to submit your projects and your stories to us. Our pitch intake or submission window has already started. It started August 15th, but our deadlines are coming up on October 15th, just about 9 days away. So it gives you a little bit of time after this session to connect with us and to refine your submission. And we hope to see some of you all share some of your pitches with us. I want to give you a little bit more information on how that process will work after we are wrapped up with our deadline. We'll be going through our adjudication process and selecting projects all the way throughout November, and then informing projects in mid-December. So for folks who are submitting, you'll be receiving news about your project around that time in December. Public announcements and funding will start to flow and become more public in March 2024. And then we will also be looking at a delivery date for your project before June 30th, 2025. So we're really looking forward into the future here and thinking about how you would be working with us if you were to be selected to be funded. So that's something to bear in mind as you think about your projects. Also, some of the timelines that you should be thinking about in terms of the scope of your story as well. So do consider all of these things as you move forward, and we hope to see some of your projects coming through our doors in the coming days. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And to answer some of those preemptively, I would love to pass it along to Christina Willings to go through some of the producer guidelines that we have here at TELUS Originals. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Ken. And thanks, Leah, for having the producer guidelines up on screen. We'll be scrolling through them as I just quickly give you a little overview. My main purpose is not to go through them with you in detail. Obviously, they're online and you can do the detailed look yourself. But I want to give you a sense of some of the highlights and also some of the information that you can find so that you know what's here and you can come back to it. Quickly then. We really care about the stories that we tell, and we really care about our relationships with you. We want to work to grow mutually beneficial production relationships in BC and Alberta, and we're thrilled to have the opportunity to do that through this program and through TELUS's mandate of giving back to the communities in which we work. So, excuse me, speaking of the communities, it's important for you to know that we give back specifically to the communities where TELUS generates revenue. And you will find this exhaustive list of all of those communities in the producer guidelines. We also have a requirement that although we like our stories to have national and global resonance, we do need them to be rooted in one of these communities in BC and Alberta. And that means about 75 to 80% of the screen time actually physically reflects these communities. So here they are listed for you. Quick shout out to anybody from Innisfail, or for all of you who know about Innisfail. We know that there's a typo that says Innis Falls. We love Innisfail, we love Alberta. We are aware that Innisfail is a town in southern Alberta, and we will change that typo very quickly. So don't hopefully you'll forgive us for that when you see that as you're going through. If you do that before it's corrected, which will be soon. Quick overview of what we fund. We're often confused with the TELUS fund, who has primarily a health mandate. We do not primarily have a health mandate. We have 4 social purpose pillars within which we fund our programming. These are health and well-being, flourishing communities, environment and sustainability, connectivity and technology, food systems, and security. So those are the things that are important to know about the kinds of things that we fund. We do not fund game shows, competition shows, lifestyle, true crime, music videos. We don't do any scripted, important to know. We also don't do what we, colloquially call reality TV. So docusoap, ocusoap, or any kind of soft scripted content. We're really documentary focused here. As Ken mentioned, we accept pitches. We're moving to 1 tranche a year. And so the current tranche closes on October 15th. We're doing this for a number of reasons, but primarily to provide you with an 18-month production cycle so that you have more time to provide the really high quality content that we love that people are creating for us. And we really strive to be producer friendly in everything that we do. And so we're really interested in your feedback, of course, at any time about our programs, but this is something we're trying out now. We work with Canadian independent producers who are committed to engaging authentically with local communities represented in your films. We are willing to provide support on a case-by-case basis to people who are perhaps younger filmmakers, younger not chronologically, obviously, but who are less experienced filmmakers. And so because we're happy to support your development and we're here primarily to do that. So it's always good to check in with us and see if your show seems to be the kind of show that would be a good idea for us to support you on a little more than we might usually. As I said, we try to be producer friendly in all our policies and approaches. That means that we flow most of our money up front on signing, either 80-20 or 70-30. Also, we have a code of conduct that we adhere to. It's really important for you to know that you can hold us accountable, the TELUS Originals team accountable to this code of conduct. And in turn, we require that all TELUS Originals funded producers read and acknowledge their intent to abide by that. Some things to consider. This is a pretty exhaustive list, so I'm not going to go through all of it, but there's a list here of things that you can take into account when you're preparing your submission for us that will really help maximize the possibility of your being funded by us, right? So we're talking about capturing a contemporary narrative that's unfolding in the present, or present a formerly overlooked historical narrative, of which, of course, there are many that are very important. But in that case, we'd ask you to make clear the relationship to the current moment. We want issues of social relevance to Canadians. We love things that are story-driven or access-driven or provide a new point of entry to a world we thought we understood. Of course, we've mentioned we need your stories to be locally reflective, but also have a wider resonance. And present a clearly intersectional perspective and a compelling vision, that perhaps can promote change or foster new understanding. So some of the things that we ask ourselves when we're reviewing your pitches are, does your film shed light on something formerly hidden from view? Does your story challenge stereotypes? Is it truly reflective of the communities that you're seeking to represent? These are all things that are on the website, so I'm not going to, again, list them all. You can read them yourself, but I want you to know the kinds of things that we're going to be asking ourselves. Basically, is your story relevant now? Will it be relevant 5 years from now? How will your story shift perspectives? And are you the person to tell this story? And these are things that we want you to ask yourself, which is a good segue into how we deal with Indigenous content. Nothing about us without us is our guiding principle here. And you'll see hyperlinked here is the on-screen protocols and pathways guide, a media production guide to working with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities, cultures, concepts, and stories. So if you are even considering any kind of Indigenous themed material, we really require that you make yourself familiar with this document. And, do that before you pitch to us, because that can really streamline your application and help you discern for yourself whether this is something that we're likely to be interested in supporting. Financing. Because we're a telecommunications company and not a broadcaster, we operate a little bit differently when it comes to your financing scenario, and I think this is a good thing to highlight. So we cannot accept conventional broadcast second window sales in your financing structure. And that is because of our conditions of license. Canadian broadcasters are subsidized, and the short version is we cannot create content that benefits from that subsidy because we're spending money that is giving back into community. If you want to understand that more deeply, you can always reach out at another time, but that's the headline. However, there are some exceptions. You can come to us with Knowledge Network as a second window, APTN as a second window, or TV Ontario as a second window in your financing. And note that in all these cases, I'm saying second window. We want to be in first. We want to be the lead broadcaster, but you can bring either of those three broadcasters who are not subsidized and not government funded in a secondary position. So that is kind of an exciting, pretty recent development. Our broadcast licenses, because we do use a broadcast model, basically to make ourselves, what's the word, so that you can understand how best to work with us. We give licenses from $30,000 to about $250,000, depending on the scope and potential reach of your project. So we're able to give pretty good license amounts. You are able to access CAVCO, federal tax credits, the Alberta Screenplays Production Grant, Film Incentive BC tax credits. So those are good things to know as well. We can accept those in your financing, and our funding leaves you eligible for those tax credits. For Indigenous-led content only at this point, we can accept projects that are supported by the Canada Council. Now, this is a Canada Council regulation. There may be, these things tend to fluctuate, but this is the situation at the moment, to the best of our knowledge. If you hear something new, then please do give us a heads up about that. And also, we can accept funding, of course, from the Indigenous Screen Office. One thing that's interesting about us is that we can accept arm's length private contributions to your program, whereas many broadcasters are not able to accept that. These include corporate sponsorships from non-telecommunications companies, provided they take a secondary position. And of course, your film must be legit and arm's length and free of any direct references to any brands or endorsements or any of that sort of thing, right? So for example, Lush sometimes gives money to environmentally sustainably focused films and projects. So just to give you an example of the kinds of things we can accept. We do not provide development funds, as Ken already has explained. And you retain all IP, all control of your copyright through working with us. So as soon as you deliver to us and you've negotiated with our wonderful Kelly Fox about your launch timing, then you are free to sell into acquisition with any other broadcasters or distributors, nationally or internationally. So those are real pluses of working with us. We require all the usual chain of title agreements and releases and all that sort of thing. We reserve the right to require that you carry E&O insurance, but we don't require it. Something that I didn't mention, we no longer use YouTube as our digital platform. Thanks to our wonderful team member, Ken Soy, we now have a bespoke and geo-gateable platform as our digital exploitation or exhibition platform. So that's something that I think is really important to know. You can always negotiate holdbacks with us. As I said, we try to be producer friendly, but we can also geogate. So that's what I'm going to, I'll stop there because I think I've spoken quite a lot. And I'll pass it over to Selena for the next bit of information. Thanks, Selena.
Thanks, Christina. So I'm going to walk you through the submission process. So this is our new application form which lives on the website, the TELUS Originals website. Pretty straightforward, but I thought, it's always nice to have a visual, so we'll just walk through it and leave time for questions at the end. So essentially, what we're looking for is some of the standard information: your project title, producer, contact information. We have a standard submission release form that we ask all folks to sign and then upload. We'd love some background on if you've worked with us before, one-liner log line, as well as the total runtime. And if that's an estimate, that's totally fine, but it's important for us to get a sense of how long the project is going to be, and the expected license amount. So the ask, your ask of us, we obviously need to know how much money you're looking for to support the project. And if you have a confirmed second window, as Christina mentioned, the eligible broadcasters that we can work with are listed there. We also like to know a little bit about the development history of the project. So as much or as little information that you can provide us is just helpful background about your involvement with the project and where you're at with it. Also very important, as Christina mentioned in the producer guidelines, the social impact narrative pillars. So you can select one that, and often projects do fall within multiple, but try your best to select the one that is most relevant to your project. And again, the regional piece, which is really important to us. So we've got a drop-down list there. If you have any questions about communities that you're not seeing in the list, you can always reach out and we can get more information to you if you have questions about other communities that may or may not be eligible, but they are generally within those main regions. And then number 16 here, this is sort of the bulk of the application. It's your pitch document. So it can be a Word doc or it can be a PDF. And essentially, it just has all that core information about the project again. Really important when thinking through the treatment to go back and reference some of the producer guidelines under the what to consider element there. We outline really, I think, in a lot of great detail in the producer guidelines, as Christina just went through, what makes a strong pitch. So if you have questions about what to include in terms of background, approach, visual references, that sort of thing, you can always refer back to the pitch guidelines to help structure your pitch document. Also, just an important note within that larger PDF, we do like to know a little bit about the ethical story considerations and approach, as well as for docu-series, if you can outline each episode as well as a sample episode structure. That would be very helpful. And other information that we require, a financial outline, financial structure, as well as the budget. And, we recognize that these things can change and they can be fluid. So just do your best to estimate where you're at right now. And we can always work with you should your project be selected to finesse those pieces. Production schedule, also quite important for us to just get a sense of the doability of the project. And again, more detail in that is always helpful. And if you've got a little teaser or trailer, you're welcome to submit that. It's not required, but again, any video support is definitely welcome. And we also ask for a small section here about the audience. So who's your target audience for this film? Again, try to be as detailed and specific as you can. We get that films have a broad appeal, generally speaking, but if you have a specific audience in mind, it's always great for us to know. And also to that point, if you have an audience development plan in place or a work in progress, you're welcome to upload it here. It's not a requirement, but if you have any thoughts, preliminary thoughts about marketing and publicity, you're definitely welcome to tell us about that. And we do accept those line items in a budget. And if you've met with us during a one-on-one call, please mark it down here. It's always a great flag for us to see, who we've spoken to about the project. And we've got a section here. If there's anything else we haven't asked, you're welcome to include more information and any other documentation you think might be helpful. And then we ask you to just sign off on the submission form here, and And that's it. So if you have any questions specifically about this form, we'll do our best to answer them in the Q&A here. So thanks, Leah. I'll throw it back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ken, Christina, and Selena there. I really appreciate that. I've put this slide up on the screen here. Matt, if you don't mind just pulling that up for just a quick second. It's a QR code that links to our website. If you don't have your phone handy, then the URL is just right here, telus.com/TELUS Originals, where you can find the information that my team just outlined. Okay, great. I will give it just one more moment in case anyone needs to. I suppose afterwards, if you're watching the recording, you can probably just hit pause. So maybe we'll just go back to the team for now without the slides. Thank you so much. Can't say enough amazing things about Matt. Matt Waterworth, thank you so much for all the magic happening behind the scenes right now. So Q&A time. Let's get into some questions, which I know is why we're here right now. So I see a few questions coming in. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, Ken, this one's definitely for you. Question here is your platform, I'm guessing they're referring to the online platform, is watch.telusoriginals.com. Are you able to geogate to specific provinces, or is it just international?
That's a great question, Braden. Thank you so much for asking. For our watch telusoriginals.com platform, we are able to geogate down to the province, which gives us an opportunity the opportunity to find distribution opportunities throughout. So we're happy to talk to you about that in greater detail if your film is selected and finished. Yeah. That's our site. So we're really happy to be sharing that with you all.
Thank you very much, Ken. Lolly asks here, what does geogating mean? And so Lolly, what that means is that if you have your film online, if for instance, it's still doing a festival tour in Europe, for instance, that we can have it online. So people in globally outside of Europe, for instance, can watch it. But if you're in Europe, you can't watch it because it's still on a festival circuit. I probably could have used a better example like Ontario or something like that. But hopefully that answers your question. Great. Thanks very much. Christina, perhaps this one's for you from Levin. Your guidelines say that you do accept some development costs in budgets. Can you expand on this?
Yes. Hi, Levin Creative. That's Kelly, right? Hi, Kelly. That's just really a bit of a shout out, because I know that with other broadcasters, sometimes you need to sort of negotiate funding. And if you've had development funds from them, can you include some of your development costs in your production budget? And we're just saying for us, yes, you can. So, obviously if you've done development research or you've done sort of casting tape or any of that sort of stuff, and then you want to attribute some of those costs to your production budget because you're going to be using that footage, absolutely, those can become production costs. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Okay, I think so. We'll wait for Kelly, we believe, to reply. But that sounds great. Thanks very much, Christina. We have a question here that's very specific about one of our regions in the Kootenays, it seems. And so, Mark, perhaps I'll get back to you because I don't know that I can get into the map right now and get back to that very specific question. Mark, can I ask that you email us at telusoriginals@telus.com, and we'll be sure to get an answer to you. And for everyone else, we'll have that on the slide at the very end. I just wanted to make sure, Mark, that we saw your question. Okay, keep the questions coming. I'm seeing a bunch of thanks for posting. We do have a question. Okay, thanks very much. We do have a question here about the Canada Council for the Arts. And Christina, I know you covered that and kind of shared what we know about their policies. I don't believe at this time we have more information on the status of their eligibility and kind of ability to combine funds. We are also reaching out to learn more about that as we speak. So unfortunately, I don't believe, but correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, we have any more details to be able to share on that particular topic, but we are pursuing it, and if anything changes, we'll include that and update that on our website.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. I can maybe just top up just a little on that, and that is that, as you, I'm sure, know, Canada Council likes to really protect the artistic vision of the creators with whom they work, and for that reason, they have traditionally not included projects that have market funding. Conventional broadcast funding. Now, we have indications that they may be beginning to think of us differently because we don't deliver eyeballs to advertisers. We're not market driven in any of the classic senses of that, even though we do give notes, but we're very focused on supporting the filmmaker's voice. So if you speak to them and you find that they are more open to TELUS these days, I mean, this is just something we're navigating now. We also have a few internal conversations to have around whether we can accept Arts Council funding in our projects for reasons that I won't get into now. But that's just to sort of drill down a little bit more. That's where we are with that. But we're always open to having those conversations. If you hear anything differently from Canada Council, we should perhaps reach out to them and ask them ourselves.
Totally. We'll get on the phone as soon as this is done. Thanks, Christina. So many fabulous questions coming in. I'm just really appreciating the opportunity to be in conversation with you all, and I know my team is as well. So Braden, you had a follow-up question here about interested in projects that can cover multiple communities. So if the community is within one region, we call them serving regions. Well, we don't, the CRTC does. If there's multiple communities in one serving region, then that's okay. So for instance, the Lower Mainland of British Columbia, you might have, your project might go from Vancouver to Burnaby to Whistler and so on. That would be okay. However, if you're submitting a kind of one-off, feature documentary, it really does need to 80% of the time live in that region. And so it couldn't be a film that, is spread across multiple regions of Alberta, for instance, or same with British Columbia, of course. If there's a specific question, like my project is specific, a more specific answer. The way that we address stories that are kind of, spread across various different regions, there's many ways you could approach that. One of the ways that we look at it for our program with what we can do is docuseries. So we have many fabulous examples, some of which were highlighted at the Rosie Awards just recently, of docuseries, perhaps like a 5-episode or 4 or 3-episode docuseries where one episode is in Fort Mac, another one might be in Lloydminster, another one might be in Calgary or Edmonton or something like that, and each asset has a region, and you'll see that accounted for in our pitch and take form. Okay. Let's see. Can we have our business based in one community or region and film in another? Yes, this is a big differentiator between StoryHive and TELUS Originals. You can be a filmmaker who resides in one region and make a film in another. We do ask, though, that in your pitch, you outline why you're best suited to make that film, why in this instance, Lolly, you're sharing that you are based in Calgary and would travel to Fort Mac. So why are you the best person to be sharing that story up in Fort McMurray? Can the primary subject of the doc be from the US, but most of the primary filming be within your broadcasting region, Calgary and area? I don't think that we have a regulation against that in any way. It would need to go back to something that we talk about a lot about being locally reflective and locally relevant. And you would need to ask yourself, does it meet that criteria? Anyone on the team want to elaborate on that?
I'm happy to, Leah. I think the thing that we would want to know is, does that U.S. subject have relevance in the local community? So is there a story about that person that's unfolding in the community that's within our serving region? So, I mean, they can be from anywhere in the world, and we've made lots of documentaries, supported lots of documentaries about people from, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Germany, US. The point for us really is where are they now, and where is the story unfolding that you're telling, primarily, right? So yeah, we can definitely accommodate people from diaspora of all kinds, right? As long as their story is specifically relevant and unfolding within your community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Christina. There's another question that has some similarity to the topic that we're on, so I'll share it. Apologies if I missed this. Can we still submit our pitch if our region is not listed as one of the 15? I mean, the truth is no. It needs to be in one of the regions. But if you see, for instance, Calgary, and your pitch is kind of located 15 kilometers outside of the Calgary city limits, let us know, reach out, let us know. Screenshots are always helpful, screenshots of Google Maps, and we can take a look at our map and see where that boundary is. And perhaps, it would be impossible to list all the neighborhoods that are included, but we can take a look. And, but, for instance, if your pitch is kind of right at the border of the territories or right at the border of Alaska, or very, very far away from Prince George, one of the major kind of hubs in the central and northern BC, unlikely that we would be able to submit that type of a project, just to be honest and save you time. Okay.
Sorry, just because I happen to have the producer guidelines open, I noticed that, for example, Williams Lake isn't yet in the producer guidelines. And we do specifically consider communities where there may be an Indigenous community really close to a town that is listed here, like Kainai and Lethbridge. So keep those kinds of things in mind as well. If you're if you don't see your community reflected here, but you think that it may be within the region, or you would like to see us consider it if it's specifically from an Indigenous community that's close to one of these areas, then another reason to shout out, as Leah said. Thanks.
All right, we have another question. Are forecasting models as finance structures meaningful? TELUS Originals. Thanks, Dana from Calgary Lethbridge. Is that forecasting your budget? Perhaps, Danny, you could just elaborate on your question here just a little bit further. The question is, are forecasting models as finance structures meaningful? I mean, if you don't have folks that are yet committed, we like to see a pending. But if you'd like more of an answer, then I'd love a more detailed question in the chat. One more. If a project is proposed to film in a few regions in Western Canada, are we able to select multiple regions in the application, or should it be where the production office is based? I think that might be from 10 minutes ago or so, so we perhaps already answered that. Your production office doesn't need to be in the region where you're filming. And if you're submitting one film to be considered, it needs to be in that one region. If you're submitting a docuseries, it can be multiple of the regions outlined. Okay, next one from David. Can you talk about where the pitch goes once submitted, specifically if it includes sensitive topics about the subject? For background, how many people see the pitch? Very nice question. Thank you so much for asking that question. The folks that you see on the screen make up the majority of the people that see it. Kelly Fox, who I introduced you to earlier, also has access to review the pitches. And then Cameron Singer, who I introduced earlier as well. My boss, the director of local content and executive in charge of production for TELUS Originals, also has viewership. So it's a really limited group at that stage. And then we do have an internal board, which again is also limited, but does represent a vast variety of identities. They're a limited internal group that would review the pitch as well prior to a decision being made. Hat Chat Productions asks, I think that you may have mentioned it. However, I'm curious, does TELUS Originals cover total production costs with the licensing funding or just partial? What are the common sources of funding? Christina outlined that a little bit in the producer guidelines. Oftentimes, TELUS Originals does make up the bulk of the production funding, but other groups are, of course, select other groups are invited to participate as well. Christina, did you want to top up on that?
Thanks, Leah. Yeah, I'm happy to. We don't have a set percentage of funding that is either a cap in terms of what our proportion of the budget needs to be, or or a demand or a minimal amount of the budget that our proportion needs to be. So it's really up to you how you finance your project, but keep in mind that we do assess doability, and that has to do with, as Selena mentioned before, schedule. It also very much has to do with our review of your budget, and also if we think that the scope of the project is doable on the financing that you are proposing, right? So those are things really for you to ask yourself in terms of your project, but know that we'll be looking at it through that lens as well. So sometimes people are able to produce their show entirely with the financing that we're providing. I would say most of the time people bring other money to the table from tax credits or from other of the allowable sources. But we're not going to refuse you just because you have a smaller budget that can be entirely covered by the funding that we provide. Thanks, Sarah.
Fabulous. Thank you very, very much. Okay, we're down to about 2 questions. So I'm really hoping that we've got some more great questions coming in. I'm a firm believer here, no question is a dumb question or anything of that sort. So please keep them coming. EM Workshop, thanks very much for elaborating on your question. I'll just let it be there for just a moment. I've got a couple questions ahead of you here. Raman, you asking, are you mainly looking for stories directly related to the producer's ethnic group, or do you welcome Canadian stories in general? Absolutely. Submit whatever pitch that you have an authentic connection to, whatever is meaningful to you. It does not have to be directly related to your own personal ethnic background. If there's another story that you want to tell that you feel responsibility to share, or that you feel like you're the right person to tell, that you have buy-in from that community, please stretch beyond, beyond that for sure, Raman. And that advice would be to anyone in this group. We have years of demonstrated experience that we support that. So please do.
I also just want to add to that as well. While we encourage it, I really do encourage you to also think about who is involved in the project, both in front of and behind the camera when we tell these stories, and what the relationship to those people are if you are telling a story outside of your own experience. So I just do, as Christina referenced in the production guidelines, nothing about us without us is always something that we think about, not just in the Indigenous storytelling space, but in other communities as well. So do consider that as you move through and develop your submission.
Absolutely echo that. Thanks very much, Ken, for saying that so well. Appreciate that. Excellent. Oh, here. Okay, Heather, nice to see you, Heather. Thanks for joining. Is there a minimum duration for films, an ideal runtime? Do you like shorts, a TV hour, 44, etc.? Or can film durations be determined by the way the story unfolds? Yes, exactly. The film duration can be determined by the way the story unfolds. When we go into contracting with you, you would have an agreement of how long the film would be at minimum. And, if it turns into a longer film than you had anticipated, more people wanted to participate, something else unfolded that you really wanted to capture, then that's okay with us too. And that's the beauty of delivering, working with us and delivering to someone who's not filling a time slot, and rather sharing it with folks on video on demand, as we do on Optic TV and elsewhere. So we do like shorts. We like a lot of things, So I can't say necessarily that we would get in on a project that's like 5 minutes, but we have supported projects. There was some box art earlier of a project that's 17 minutes, another that is probably around 22 minutes, some that are in the 40s, 60s. We recently attended the Vancouver International Film Festival, where there were a series of features, but definitely we're friendly to shorts as well. We do ask, and this may be familiar to folks who have worked with us in the past, encourage producers to submit ideas for bonus content as well. So especially if films are kind of on the shorter side of things, we're curious if you've considered additional content that gives viewers additional ways to engage with the subjects and material that you're covering. It's often done really well with bonus content, whether behind the scenes or extended interviews or other formats. what is the length of term TELUS expects to have control of the project for your platform? Lots to say there, Braden. Christina, do you have that on the tip of your tongue? Do you want to take that one?
Sure. First of all, I'll just correct maybe a misconception there. We are entirely non-exclusive. So we don't take control of your content at all, in fact. We do have a standard 10-year non-exclusive license. That means that we can have it up on our VOD and watch TELUSoriginals.com platforms for as long as 10 years. We can also negotiate with you, as we keep saying, we're very producer friendly. And if you have reasons that you would like to negotiate a shorter term, we're really open to that as well. Sometimes people's music licensing, for example, is just too expensive for a 10-year term. Or you might want to go into distribution or make other sales to keep your production company afloat and to have your project seen internationally. Those are all things that we will negotiate with you. The reality is that we actually rotate our programming more often than every 10 years. So know that that's something that you can talk to us about. But the most important point there is that you control your IP. Once you've delivered to us, you can distribute, you can exhibit anywhere you like. And all of our windows are completely non-exclusive. Thanks, Leah.
Excellent answer. Thanks very much, Christina. Christina, since you're on the mic already, can I rephrase EM Workshop's question with the elaborated portion here?
Sure.
The question is, are forecasting models as finance structures meaningful to TELUS Originals? And then it's elaborated on a little bit further. Just interested about projections for revenue generation based on distribution in the proposal. Example, licenses to public performance markets.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we don't really need your projections for revenue generation. What we're interested in is how you're financing production. So when we ask for your financing scenario, as Leah mentioned, we'll ask you to list all of your confirmed or pending financing partners with the percentage of the budget that each of those contributions represents. And then we would hope that the pending go to confirmed before you go into production. And we would talk to you about what your relationship is with each of those potential funders when we're assessing the doability of your project, so that we can have a fairly clear sense of how much money you're likely to have to contribute to the cash flow for production. So we're not so much concerned about forecasts for revenue generation, because you're not going to be able to fold that money very likely into production unless you interim finance it. And the likelihood of your being able to interim finance based on a projected distribution revenue is very slim. So that wouldn't be something that would really be relevant to what we're analyzing when we're looking at your project. So, I mean, we're interested in your discoverability plans because impact is really important to us. We want our programs to have impact and to be meaningful for the communities they represent. But in terms of the revenue that they would generate, that's more of interest to you than it is to us. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Christina. You know what? I'm just noticing that we're about 6 minutes from the top of the hour, and Kelly has a lot of really exciting things to share with people, especially folks based in Edmonton, and a little bit of an event to get engaged with for folks who are interested in joining events online. I see there are 3 more questions. We're going to take a screenshot. I'm actually going to do that right now. Take a screenshot and answer these questions and figure out a way to get them to you. As I'm saying that, it might actually even be better if you email us. However, I am going to share my screen and hand it over to Kelly in just a second. Let's see. Oh, there we are. Matt is brilliant and already has that up for us. TELUS Originals team, thank you so much for answering those questions and for sharing all the information that you did earlier. Kelly, over to you.
Thanks, Leah, and thanks everyone for those great questions. I figure that I'm learning a lot as we go along here as well, but I wanted to just let everybody know about the ways that you and audiences can engage with TELUS Originals films. So the most broad one is our watch.telusoriginals.com which is our new online streaming platform where you can go online, check out our films for free globally, unless we've had to geo-gate them down for some reason. This is a brand new platform. We've only ported over about 14 films at the moment. We'll be adding lots more in the future, and all of our new future productions will go on here as well. So it's a beautiful platform, and I'd encourage you to go take a look at the kinds of films that we've already been making. And the second for Optic customers is on to TELUS Optic TV. We have our own channel, which is channel 8. So if you were to go on to TELUS Optic TV, if you're a subscriber, go to channel 8. You'll see a huge amount of TELUS Originals programming that could keep you busy for days. So I'd encourage you to go on there if you're a subscriber. And if you're able to get onto Instagram, follow us there at TELUS Originals. We're always posting about new events that are coming up, festival events, and then we also cross-post a lot of events that are relevant to the community. So I'd encourage you to go on to our Instagram and follow there as well. If we could go to the next slide, Leah or Matt. So I'm really excited to tell you about these two events. So the first one is happening next Wednesday on October 11th. It's happening at 12 p.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Mountain Time. So the incomparable Jules Kostashian and Dr. Tasha Hubbard are joining us with the host Jade Tutusas to talk about reshaping representations of Indigenous people in the media. We've also brought on an ally to the Faculty of Native Studies program, Dan Levy, will actually be joining the conversation. So we're just getting ready to update our materials. He's now free to do so since the strike has ended, the actors' strike. So if you're tuning in, there's an RSVP. If you go onto our Instagram page, you'll find out all the information there in the link in bio to register for that activity, which will be really an incredible talk. And that's virtual, so anyone can join. And then for the Edmonton guests joining on Friday, October the 13th at 7 o'clock at Metro Cinema, which is in the Garneau, our film Chubby Cree, which is by Dr. Jules Kostashian, will be screening. And the added bonus is Chubby Cree themselves will be there to perform. So tickets are $5 online or at the door. And we're super excited. We want to sort of blow the roof off of the Garneau Theatre with a crowd watching Chubby Cree perform, and then the documentary about them. So join us for that. And then the next one is actually our AMPIA event that we're working with you on. If it comes up, Matt, the next screen, which, as Brent mentioned from the beginning, is the Producer Power Up on October 21st on Saturday. I'm excited to be there and hear everything that's going to happen that day. But also Christina Willings will be joining us virtually to talk about TELUS Originals. So I'd encourage everybody on the call that lives in Edmonton to come out to this event on Saturday, October 21st. Thanks. And back to you, Leah.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Kelly. Before I hand it over to Brent, just to close out the presentation, I want to share this key information again. Intake deadline, October 15th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it gives folks in Alberta an extra hour there. Our website where you can find all this information is telus.com/TELUS Originals. You can always email us at telusoriginals@telus.com. New this year, we created Calendly links so people can set up 15-minute pitch meetings with one of our production executives. There are still some spots available for next week. Yes, it is Friday today, so next week. I think perhaps 10 or so. But if there's a huge demand and we run out, we'll look to add a couple more sessions to make sure we can accommodate everyone. You can find the link on our website under the submission guidelines page. So please find it there. I noticed that at the top of the call, I missed congratulating TELUS Original funded filmmaker Ava Carvon for earning a Rosie Award for Best Director for documentary over 30 minutes for her TELUS Original film Lessons from the Sunflower. And I'd like to also just take a moment to congratulate all the TELUS Original and Story High funded filmmakers for their combined 21 nominations at the Rosies this year. So Thank you to AMPIA for the wonderful work they do in Alberta. Thank you to Brent and Bonnie and Matt and the whole AMPIA team for hosting us today. The film industry in BC and Alberta, including AMPIA, has been so incredibly supportive and encouraging of our work and the filmmakers that we fund over the years, and we certainly appreciate it very, very much. If anyone watching has any more questions, please do reach out. And with that, Brent, over to you.
Oh, thank you. 21 nominations. Wow, that's incredible. And that is testament to TELUS and all you do to allow us more opportunity to tell our stories. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for today, a wealth of questions and knowledge. And Christina used the term producer friendly. And I think beyond what that means to us in terms of the deals we can structure with you, it's about this and the outreach today that goes such a long way for all of us. And so on behalf of everybody here today, thank you for this session. It's extremely valuable. And we hope to talk to you all soon. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks.